The snowstorm rolled over the small mountain town like a white curtain, swallowing streets, houses, and even the sound of distant traffic. In a cramped wooden cabin behind Ward Auto Repair, Ethan Ward paced with a wrapped gift in his hands. His fingertips were rough from years of fixing engines, but they held the delicate package with surprising care. It was a small wooden toy airplane he had carved over the past week during slow hours at the shop. Nothing fancy, just smooth pine wings, a tiny hand-painted star, and a red ribbon. Asterisk, but to him, it mattered. And to one little girl, it might mean everything. Mia, 7 years old, bright eyes, curious questions, and a voice that could fill a silent room. She had visited the shop with her mother when their car needed urgent repairs. While her mother took call after call, stressed and exhausted, Mia had wandered around the office watching Ethan work. She talked about airplanes, Christmas, her old home, and how hard things had been since her father passed away last year. But she talked about the small wooden airplane the most. Asterisk. Do you think Santa brings toys like this? She had asked, touching the unfinished model on Ethan's desk. Asterisk, he remembered smiling. If he doesn't, I will. She had grinned like he'd told her the world's greatest secret. Now, days later, Christmas Eve had arrived with the worst blizzard in a decade. Roads were declared unsafe, power flickered across town, and even snowplows struggled to move. Ethan could have ignored his promise. No one would blame him. No one expected him to deliver a toy in a storm that swallowed whole trees. Asterisk, but every time he looked at the wrapped gift, he saw Mia's excited smile. He remembered the loneliness hidden behind her cheerful voice, and he remembered how her mother, quiet, tired, seemed to carry the weight of 2 lives alone. Asterisk, Ethan sighed, grabbed his heavy coat, and stepped outside. The wind hit him instantly, fierce and biting. Snowflakes stung his cheeks, and the world beyond the shop was almost invisible, just swirling white. His old pickup truck waited under a blanket of snow, tires already chained for traction. Asterisk, this is crazy, he muttered, brushing off the windshield. Asterisk, but he opened the door anyway, because a promise was a promise. Asterisk, he placed the toy gently on the passenger seat, as if it were fragile glass. Then he turned the key. The engine coughed, growled, and finally roared to life. Asterisk, Ethan gripped the steering wheel, took one long breath, and drove into the storm. He didn't know what waited ahead, blocked roads, fallen trees, or worse. But he knew one thing. Asterisk, no child should feel forgotten on Christmas. The storm only grew worse as Ethan pushed deeper into the forest road, the truck's headlights barely slicing through the swirling white chaos. Snowflakes slammed against the windshield like tiny bullets, and the wipers struggled to keep up. Every few seconds he had to lean forward just to see the faint outline of the road. Even then it felt like he was driving into nothingness. Asterisk, the heater rattled inside the cabin, fighting the cold that crept through every crack. His breath fogged the glass, his fingers numb even inside thick gloves. But Ethan kept one hand close to the little package on the passenger seat. Every time the truck bounced or slid, he'd reach over to steady it, as if protecting a child. Asterisk, hang on, kid, he whispered, though Mia wasn't there to hear. Asterisk, the road twisted, climbing higher into the mountains. Pine trees, heavy with snow, bent under the weight like old men bowing to the wind. Ethan leaned forward, squinting through the storm. He had driven this route before, but tonight it felt unfamiliar, dangerous, almost haunted. The world outside was nothing but white, black, and the faint reflection of his own worried face. Asterisk, a sharp gust hit the truck from the side, making it skid. His heart lurched. He slammed his foot on the brake and regained control. The truck fishtailed before the tires finally caught traction again. Asterisk, easy, easy, he muttered, steadying his hands. Asterisk, for one terrifying moment, he thought about turning back, about going home and convincing himself that a toy wasn't worth risking his life. But then he imagined Mia sitting by a small Christmas tree, waiting for Santa, waiting for something magical after a year of loss. He imagined her mother trying to hide disappointment, wishing she could give her daughter more, and he pressed the accelerator again. He drove for another mile before the truck lurched to a sudden stop. A fallen pine tree blocked the path, thick trunk, heavy branches, covered in fresh snow. It was too big to drive around, too solid to push aside. Ethan closed his eyes, exhaling sharply. Turning back wasn't an option. Mia's house was still miles away. Asterisk, he stepped out into the storm, immediately swallowed by the cold. Snow piled around his boots, rising almost to his knees. He waded to the back of the truck, grabbed the old hatchet he kept for emergencies, and started hacking at the branches. Each swing sent vibrations through his stiff arms. Snow fell from above, collecting on his shoulders and hair, soaking into his clothes. Asterisk, the wind cut at his face like knives, but he worked without stopping, branch by branch, strike by strike, breath by breath. His muscles burned, his fingers stung, and the storm roared as if daring him to quit. But Ethan wasn't a man who quit. After what felt like hours, he cleared just enough space to squeeze the truck through. Panting, he tossed the hatchet back in the truck bed, climbed in, and slammed the door shut. His whole body trembled from exhaustion. He let the heater blast him before shifting back into gear. Asterisk the road beyond the tree became steeper, winding along the mountain's edge. The cliffside was invisible beneath the snow, but he knew it was there. One slide to the right and he could tumble hundreds of feet. The thought made his stomach tighten. He slowed to a crawl, gripping the wheel until his knuckles turned white. His eyes flicked constantly between the road and the toy on the seat. The little wooden airplane seemed to watch him back, reminding him of the promise he had made. Asterisk after another long stretch of crawling forward, flakes began swirling even faster. The wind howled louder, rocking the truck. For a moment, Ethan wondered if the storm was too much, if this was pure foolishness. But then a faint glow caught his eye, a small set of lights far away, Pine Hollow. He could almost feel relief wash over him. Mia's home wasn't far now. If he could just make it down this last slope, he'd be safe. But nature wasn't done testing him. As he descended, the tires hit a patch of ice hidden under snow. The truck jerked sideways. Ethan's heart stopped. His breath froze in his chest. The truck tilted left, right, threatening to slide off the trail entirely. He fought the wheel, countersteering, pressing the brake gently. The truck slid a few feet toward the cliff's direction before finally stopping. Ethan sat there, breathing hard, trembling. The storm howled outside, shaking the truck like a toy. He closed his eyes and whispered a shaky breath. Not today, not tonight. He tapped the toy airplane once for luck. Then he continued down, inch by inch. At last, the path straightened. The glow of houses grew clearer through the snow. Warm lights, smoke from chimneys, a small pocket of life in the frozen forest. When he finally reached the turn leading to Mia's home. The snow was deeper, untouched by other vehicles. The truck pushed through, engine groaning, tires clawing at the ground. He followed the fence line until the small wooden house appeared quiet, cozy, glowing with soft yellow lights despite the storm raging around it. Ethan let out a breath he didn't realize he'd been holding. He'd made it and tomorrow, when the world thought he would still believe that some promises, even the small ones, were worth walking straight into a storm. Ethan stepped out of the truck and was swallowed instantly by deep snow. The wind stung his face, but the sight of warm light glowing from the windows gave him strength. He trudged toward the porch, each step sinking almost to his shins, and knocked firmly on the door. It opened a moment later. Mia's mother stood there, wrapped in a thick sweater, her hair slightly messy, cheeks flushed from the heat inside. For a second she only stared, stunned. You came through that storm, she breathed, her voice shaking from disbelief. I promised Mia I'd deliver something, Ethan replied, lifting the small package. Before she could respond, a familiar voice burst through the hallway. Ethan. Mia raced forward, her socks sliding across the wooden floor as she threw her arms around his waist. Even with all the layers he wore, her warmth spread through him. He smiled and knelt, handing her the present. Merry Christmas. She tore the wrapping carefully, as if afraid to damage the ribbon. The moment she saw the wooden airplane, her eyes widened in pure, wordless joy. She hugged it to her chest as though it were alive. Mom, look, he made it just like I wanted. Her mother's expression softened, shifting from shock to quiet gratitude. She stepped aside, motioning him in. Please, come inside before you freeze. Ethan hesitated, but the storm behind him made the decision. As soon as he crossed the threshold, warmth wrapped around him like a blanket. The house smelled of cinnamon, pine, and something baking in the oven. Small fairy lights twinkled along the mantel, and a tiny tree stood in the corner, decorated with paper stars and candy canes Mia had clearly made herself. Mia ran circles around him, lifting the airplane and swooping it through the air. Look, Ethan, it flies. She giggled, even though she was the one doing all the flying. Her mother poured a mug of hot chocolate and handed it to him. You didn't have to do this, she said quietly. No one would have blamed you for staying home. I know, Ethan replied, but I didn't want her waking up disappointed. She studied him for a long, thoughtful moment. Most people don't go this far for someone else's child. Maybe they should, he said, sipping the warm drink. Mia climbed into her mother's lap, still clutching the toy. The storm raged outside, but inside the house, everything felt calm and glowing. Ethan sat with them, feeling something inside him settle, a sense of belonging he hadn't felt in years. He thought he had delivered a toy. He didn't realize he had delivered a moment that this little family would remember forever. The storm calmed by morning, leaving a soft golden glow over the mountains. Ethan stepped outside with a shovel in hand, helping clear the family's walkway. The snow was thick, but after everything he had driven through the night before, this felt almost peaceful. Mia ran around him in circles, her wooden airplane held high above her head as she made swishing sounds. You saved Christmas, she said proudly, as if declaring a medal of honor. Ethan laughed, pretty sure Christmas saved itself. Her mother stepped onto the porch, wrapping a scarf around her shoulders. She watched them for a moment before walking toward him with a thoughtful expression. You didn't have to help with the driveway, she said. The plows will come later. Figured I owed you for the hot chocolate, Ethan replied. but she shook her head. No, you owed us nothing, yet you came through a storm when nobody else would. She paused, then added softly, people don't do that anymore. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He simply kept shoveling. When they finished, she handed him a thermos of warm tea. Before you go, she said, I want to tell you something. Ethan leaned against his truck listening. Yesterday morning, before the storm, I accepted a new position. A big one. She took a breath, the cold air swirling around her. I'm the new CEO of Northstar Industries. Ethan blinked, stunned. Northstar wasn't just a company. It was the company in the region: factories, transport fleets, energy contracts. People fought for positions there. You're Mia's mom, he said slowly, trying to connect the dots. She laughed. Yes, and balancing that with running a multi-million-dollar company has been, well, overwhelming. I thought moving here would give us peace. Instead, it felt like I was drowning in responsibility. Her voice softened. But last night, when you showed up in that storm, it reminded me that good people still exist. Honest people. She reached into her coat pocket and handed him a small card. If you're willing, I want you to come to the headquarters next week. We're expanding our vehicle division. I want you to lead maintenance, full salary, benefits, and training if you want it. Ethan stared at the card, speechless. Mia ran over, tugging his jacket. You'll visit us again, right? He smiled, kneeling to her height. I'll visit, and I'll bring more airplanes. Her mom's eyes warmed. Consider it a Christmas gift, she said. Ethan looked at the sunrise glowing over the snow-covered valley and felt something he hadn't felt in years: hope. Sometimes, he realized, the biggest miracles came from the smallest promises.